At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. We encourage the volunteer spirit by providing DePaco employees with the tools and resources to help grow our communities and support the causes that matter to us. We believe that giving back not only strengthens the places we call home, but also enhances our overall well-being. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.
All things Hawkeyes. Your all-access pass from the sidelines to the postgame. Iowa's News Now Sports presents Eye on the Hawks. Sponsored by DePaco Community Credit Union and Pin Seekers.
Fair to say Gronowski has a shot to play against Wisconsin in your
I
mind?
hope so, yeah. I mean, it's cloudy, but it's rehabbing. Hopefully everything. They're all rehabbing. Hopefully
not season ending. It looked bad at first. Not season ending? Okay.
No further questions, Your Honor. That is the status update, if you want to call it that, on Mark Gronowski. In the bye week, we are, 11 days out from kickoff in Madison, 6 p.m. on FS1, the battle for the Heartland Trophy, but Iowa is on the bye. So we hear from coordinators this week in Iowa City. Welcome to your Wednesday edition of Eye on the Hawks. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here, Director Erica running the show on a Wednesday. Thank you to you if you're watching on the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. Of course, that's the video home of Eye on the Hawks. We've got the playlists with all the extra stuff, the full interviews, game recaps, and all that you can see there on the YouTube channel, or wherever you take your podcast, wherever you do your podcasting, we are there as well, whether it's Apple, Spotify, any other platforms that you can listen to. So we told you on Sunday that this was going to be our typical bye week podcast where we just do the coordinators, maybe look back at some preseason predictions, and it'll all be contained in one maybe longer episode. But it's 2025, and the more content you have spread out over different episodes, the better. So we're going to chop things up a little bit. Today's episode, just going to be those coordinator pressers, the availability we had on Tuesday, hearing from Tim Lester, Phil Parker, LeVar Woods, and then we're going to turn around Friday. That will be the preseason prediction revisits, some adjustments to some of those. In some cases, everything's the same. Some things have shifted, whether it's due to injury or new information in 5 games worth of watching these guys. So that is how things are going to lay out here this week, getting into the bye and then going into Wisconsin. How's everyone's bye week going on this Wednesday?
Pretty good, yeah. I mean, I think once you're in the season, it's always good to have a week off, right? Because every Saturday and Sunday you're kind of occupied, but looking forward to a weekend. Might go to Amana for Oktoberfest, so looking forward to that.
Not a lot of time off, I feel like. We've always got Eastern Iowa OT coming up every Friday. There's always a ton of prep going into that. We've got the Stories of the Century countdowns that we keep going with, and more to prep for that coming up this weekend. And I'll be out of town for a wedding this weekend, so got to get a few things, got to get ahead of the game on a few things, and so not a whole lot of time off with the bye week.
And you got state tennis. You have maybe the biggest since Caitlin Clarkson, not that long actually, but a massive commitment for Iowa women's basketball today.
We got her.
Enough said there. Jan Jensen and company bringing in a massive recruit, the number 6-1 in the class of 2026. Well, on a Wednesday here in the DePaco studios, let's tee it up courtesy of Pin Seekers. Where with what else? The offense. Lots of questions about if it'll be Mark Gronowski. If it's not, what's Hank Brown bring to the table? Lots of questions about the running back room just because there's been such inconsistency because of injuries, just not having everybody healthy at once. Good thing it's a deep room. And also RVZ, Reese Vanderzee. Does he come back as Iowa heads to Madison next Saturday? Let's spend a few minutes with offensive coordinator Tim Lester.
How much changes with what you're able to do when Hank comes in, and when he comes in, you had a little experience with it last year. How much are you balancing what I want to do with the offense right now and what he's comfortable with and the plays I know he likes to go to? Yeah,
it's a good question because it's different when you have a week to prepare and when it happens in the middle of a game, right? When you have a week to prepare, I have each player, each quarterback, 1, 2, and 3, fill out a form of their favorite plays. And I make my call sheet look like the starting quarterback, but I always keep them in a file. I hope I don't have to ever open up that file, but I did last week. I'd open it up and take Hanks out just to see what his favorites were, on the sheet. And so you try to call a game to make the kid comfortable. So during a game, you really don't change much of what you're doing. You're just trying to keep him comfortable. And then we got into a 2-minute situation. At that point, you got to go. There's only one way to go. And I thought he did a good job. Missed a couple things. I'm sure, he's going to learn from it. But he also got us a couple first downs, got us across the 50. We just got to finish that drive. We had a couple chances. Sailed the last one a little high. The one before that, he got a little bit confused. I wanted him to take a shot, and he didn't. But, that's learning, right? It's first time in there, and he's hungry, and it's been good to see him out there today throwing it again.
Yards per carry is down quite a bit this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, the explosives aren't there, but what do you attribute that to thus far, and how do you get that going in the second half of the season?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I didn't think it'd be as explosive. Wanting some of those to come out of the pass game. We've had more explosive pass plays than we had last year, because every year is going to be different. The inconsistency, to nobody's fault, in the running back situation has been interesting. They've all been working hard. We've literally had a different guy start, I think, every single game. I think we finished last game with only 2 that were healthy, So, and one of those was Kamari, who was hurt early and didn't come back till game 3. So just getting the consistency with the O-line and the running backs, I think that's going to help a ton. And as we become better at throwing the ball, it's going to take more and more pressure off the run game.
Has Reese Vanderzee gotten back out to practice with you guys? Do you expect him back for Wisconsin? And just kind of an overview of the receivers and how they've developed so far this year.
Yeah, right now we have, and I'm proud of this, and we're nowhere near where I'd like to eventually be, but we have 15 receivers, running backs, receivers, tight ends that have 2 or more catches right now. Like, we're spreading the ball fairly well. Obviously, I would love Reese to be one of those guys. He, I think, is going to start practicing next week. He's been doing more and more. I think they have him running a little bit right now. So he's close. That's all I can tell you. None of the decisions have to be made during a bye week, but we're hopeful that he'll be back soon and getting a big target like that on the backside of he plays the X receiver, so he'd be a huge advantage to us to have a guy like that.
So 5 games in, Mark Gronowski leading the offense and finding a little consistency, stability. Again, we don't know what the injury situation is, but he's 10 total touchdowns, 7 on the ground, has helped balance out a little more this Hawkeye offense. You see the stats on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. 116th in the nation in yards per game, 115th yards per play, but the passing game has picked up a little bit, the run game down a little bit. That happens when you lose Caleb Johnson and you've been beat up in the running back room as much as they have been. But how do we feel so far about the offense through 5 games, fellas, and still maybe not knowing exactly how the next 7 are going to go, 7 or 8, considering what it could be Mark, it could be Hank, heck, maybe Jeremy gets in there at some point too.
Well, those numbers that we just saw show a little bit about what Hawkeye fans have to be thinking of the offense this year, 116 and 115. Taking a step backwards from where they were last year, but still a lot of Big Ten play left, of course. I mean, there's still a lot of things to get figured out. There's injuries that can help or hurt this team if Reese Vanderzee comes back. Maybe that yardage takes a jump. If they can find a healthy running back to stay consistent over 3 or 4 games at least, that's going to help. But the offense especially needs to get things figured out. Honestly, all sides of the ball need to get things figured out. There's been issues with tackling. The offense has taken a step backwards. Special teams, we've had a few missed kicks. We've had a couple blocked punts. I wonder, the last team, Iowa, had 2 blocked punts in the same season. So all 3 phases of the game, frankly, really need work right now.
Yeah, in my confidence level, I'll tell you, in the third quarter last week, through three quarters in that season, I did feel confident, though, even though the yards weren't there. I mean, like, if you struggle – if the passing game struggles in that first game like it did against Albany, the stats, when you don't put up 50 and throw, 300, 400 yards of whatever during that one of those FCS games, then your yardage per game's going to be way down, right? Just because when you get to the meat of your schedule, you're not going to be doing that. But I think it all depends, like we said, on Mark Gronowski's health. It's a huge question mark if you don't have Mark Gronowski. I think when he comes back, and if he does come back, how is he 100%? Is he 75%? Is that running game diminished because his knee is, he's not 100% there?
Right.
That's a question mark too. So at this point, I was confident until that injury happened. So
yeah, it's hard with him because if he's even a little bit more hesitant on the running game, that eliminates such a huge weapon in your offense. He's a guy who really relies on the run game, and so if that's taken out of it, you've really got to figure a lot of other things out.
But bring a Reese back, bring in Kamari, and if the running back room gets healthy, maybe they can shoulder more of that load for the offense.
And just for perspective, Iowa hasn't really taken a step back statistically. They finished last year 117th in total offense, so they are about right where they were. they were 24th in rushing offense, and there's a guy now playing in Pittsburgh who certainly had a massive role to play in that. The running backs room has been a little more beat up. They have improved statistically in passing. They're also finished last year 72nd in scoring offense. They're 71st right now. So really, I mean, that's a hell of a lot better passing offense than there was last year. 2 games, though, against FCS and FBS. I don't care.
Well,
you know
I mean,
what I mean? Like, it looks better. You've got more
top
options.
10 teams on the schedule.
Yep.
You have at USC.
Cool.
I mean, just like if you're going to score 15 points against Indiana,
let them
right?
play.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, okay. I just where this team is, just watching film.
I'm sure they were higher after like Troy and Illinois State, right? At that point, than at the end of the season.
Sure. Yeah. But I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm seeing offensively. Obviously, you hope Mark's back. I've got more faith in Hank in the passing game than I did in Brendan in the passing game. 2 immensely different players. Brendan was one read, nope, okay, let's run it, and that worked out really, really well, especially when you've got Caleb Johnson. I'm cautiously optimistic and continue to be about the offense because you've got the experience, you've got the reps, and just you're looking at it a little more. There's more explosive plays in the passing game. You're waiting for a few more in the running game. I feel a little bit better about the overall situation, despite, though, tight ends haven't really gotten involved because of injuries. Vanami's had a couple spots there. Ortworth, I think we're waiting for him to break out. I think he was your pick to break out this year, at least at some point. Hayden Large has had his opportunities. But, yeah, I think it's just a different offense, right? Because you don't have a Big Ten running back of the year in the backfield, so you're trying to just figure out how to move things. But, before an injury, and there's been a lot of them, you found a little more consistency. So I think it's been good through 5 games, and now you got to figure out what Game 6 is going to look like, because what Game 6 looks like may determine what the rest of that season will appear to be moving forward. Defensively, we've kind of already hinted at it. Talked about the missed tackles on Sunday. Turnovers, wanting a little more. Phil Parker was asked about both of those and a little bit else coming out of the bye week or going into the bye week. Just asked him about overall, with so many different pieces moving in there, the linebacking core and the secondary. And Phil, we'll spend a couple minutes with him now, defensive coordinator Phil Parker. Through 5 games, the defensive is an entire unit. Are they on schedule in terms of expectation? Just to evaluate them overall of where they are, considering there's a lot of new variables.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm really pleased the way they're going about their business, and the work ethic that they do in practice, the preparation in the building here, what they do, and it's all been positive, and that's the thing you really enjoy. And you're going to see, I've seen growth already in the first 5 games, and I expect more, as we go through it, and as they play more, obviously they see things more. And it's just even the last game, they come back and they can see things like this. Hey, Coach, now I know what you're talking about. I can see it. So the more reps they get, it's hard. When you're pursuing to the ball, the angles changes all the time. And, we've obviously been working on some, we've missed some tackles, and we've been trying to work on that. And it's not easy to try to tackle it. There were good running backs. And being more consistent of how you get there, the sense of urgency, the angles that you take, and make sure that you eliminate those missed tackles or explosive plays.
You brought up the tackling. How do you work on that during the season? Because it seems like it's really limited in terms of time you can do it. Is that a bye week focus this week for your team?
No, we do it every day. We go through a tackling circuit doing practice every day, but it's not like we're taking these guys down to the ground, and it's just basic. You're doing the fundamental things of, how to tack, how to strike, how to wrap up, and I think our guys they've been doing it for a long time, and I guess you start going back and the cutting and down into the guys that you have on your team, and things have changed how we're starting to practice a little bit. We can't be as aggressive probably on, we probably need to be more aggressive in the springtime of making sure that these guys are on task and do more live stuff. But I don't know if that's the answer either. I think it all comes down to guys processing usually the play faster and knowing the right angles, how they have to go to the ball. It's very interesting. You talk about when you play a little bit more man coverage and a little bit more press coverage, you get less eyes on the ball. And, we probably are playing a little bit more press little bit more man at times. And when you do that, you're not looking at the ball. And when you play more zone, you got more guys looking at the ball, you can see it and have better opportunities for interceptions. When you're playing bump and run or where you're playing some type of man-to-man, it's usually you're so playing tight coverage that you might get more pass breakups, but not more turnovers. So that's kind of a thing we've been working on, but we've always been working on the turnover circuit that we have at the beginning of practice. And I think eventually what it is, them turnovers come as you graduate, they'll come to you if you're doing what you're supposed to do. And, obviously we want more takeaways, but you stop somebody sometime on fourth down, that's like a takeaway, as I look at it.
And they had a couple of those certainly against Indiana, but the big turnover there, Zach Lutmer, heck of a play from the sophomore, and you see the stats there on the screen. 15th in yards allowed per game, Iowa with the 15th ranked total defense in the country, 21st in yards allowed per play, just under 4.5. They've been good until they give up the big plays. TJ Hall certainly with 7 pass breakups, tied for 4th in the country. You heard Phil talk about giving up too many explosive plays, and I thought, shoot, they really hadn't given up that. They gave up 1 in Ames, gave up 1 against Albany. I don't think they gave up any against UMass. There have been 6 now in these last 2 games against Rutgers and Indiana, which with those receiving course and passing attacks, you would assume, and they've stopped the bleeding and put the fire out in their terms against Rutgers, and we're really close to doing it against Indiana. But how do we feel about this defense that, again, ton of new variables, Y.A. Black's not there in the middle, so the defensive line, you're trying to figure out that hole. You've got a new linebacking core. Xavier shifted over. Cohen's in there starting at safety. And, still maybe trying to figure out cornerbacks overall. What do we think about 5 games in? This defense that has looked great at times and then, again, has been gutted at times as well.
The issue with the explosive play situation is just like that. Yes, the stats do say that this is a great defense. I mean, they're number 6 in the country in rushing defense. I think they're like 41st somewhere in there in passing defense. But, yeah, like you say, they do give up those big plays, and even just a couple of those a game are going to kill you. And when you're going up against an Oregon and a Penn State, even if they just know, hey, if we just hit 2 or 3 explosive plays in this game, we've got Iowa cooked, because we know that their offense probably isn't going to score more than, 21 points a game. So we just need a few explosive plays. And so that, if you're Phil Parker, you know that you want to get those few plays cut down, because just a few can really hurt you. Yeah,
I also think on the flip side, just allowing 0 big plays is unrealistic in today's college football, right? It's going to happen. He had when Phil talked about if I was a defense coordinator in the NFL, I'd probably have blood pressure medication because the big plays are just all over the place. I think it's improving. The best offense you play was so far, I'd say, is Indiana. Mm-hmm. Held them 20 points. You got to think if you told me before the game Indiana scores 20 points, I think I was winning that game. Same with Iowa State, 16. I was going to win that game. Again, it's situational. There were plays made and missed on both sides of the ball, but from week 1 to week 5, I like what I see from this defense. They might give some big plays up, but at the same time, when you take them 1-to-1, that touchdown that they gave, I like the philosophy of, because it worked so much in that game, of putting pressure on them, being aggressive, and a mistake, missing a tackle, or that's going to happen, and that burns you. But at the same time, maybe I wish I had the lead at that time, and they don't do that blitz.
Yeah, I know there was a conversation at the time that people online were complaining about the cover 0 situation. You didn't mind that they brought the pressure on that play?
Last time they did it, it was
I love that call.
Yeah.
You can't let, and Phil talked about this ad nauseum yesterday too, everyone's got an opinion the next day or afterwards. It was working beautifully. Fernando Mendoza hasn't looked like that all year. That rattled, took some hits, took some shots. It comes down to it's on the backside to make the tackle. It could be a 7-yard gain, and instead it turns into a 49-yard touchdown. And even Cohen took a little bit of blame of, I can get my hand out there and maybe tip it. And that's just a captain being a captain, right? The pressure was working. He was asked about the blitzing yesterday too, and just that was
kind of interesting.
It's working.
I think he was asked about who do you decide on who to blitz, as a question I never really thought of. Mm-hmm. And I guess obviously they when they brought the double safeties, the one where it was the pick and X blew up the block, I love that aggressive. If you sat back in quarters defense and just, all right, Fernando, cut by cut, make your way down the field. I mean, I bet they score more points.
He says please and thank you.
Yeah, because no pressure. So you had to try and get to him. It's a gamble. I'd rather do that than, like Phil said at the press conference, if you listen to it, we could have sat back, but at some point they're going to get closer to kick a field goal and end the game on a field goal. Mm-hmm. At least Iowa got the ball back,
Is it the machete or paper cuts?
Yeah. You'd like to think your starting corner would make that tackle. Iowa corners usually like that. I wonder if Jalen Watson gets in more at that corner position. I think Deshaun Lee's been okay.
He hasn't been nearly as bad as the internet will tell you. He has moments. He has moments, but when you get stuck out on an island and you see 8 chasing a guy, he's going to take a lot of it. But yeah, it's if you wrap him up there, things get fixed. Jalen, I think it was on that field goal drive that pass that coupled with the roughing the passer call. Jalen's in man on that and gives it the pass. Now that happens. That's just part of a passing attack and passing defense. But yeah, it will be interesting to see Deshaun, Jalen, Shaheed if he's getting healthy. I think I saw in a video today that the team posted from practice that looked like he was back out there. He's been banged up the last couple games, but yeah, you're still figuring stuff out 5 games in. All right, we'll move to special teams now, which has been a roller coaster. You have the best returner in the country. You also have a kicker who's won 3 games over the last few years with his leg and missed an opportunity to do it on Saturday. So let's hear from LeVar Woods about Drew Stevens and how to handle a miss, and then Caden Weegan looking a heck of a lot like number 6 used to in black and gold.
Yeah, I think first off it's a unit, right? So it's not just one person, and Drew's the kicker, so everyone looks at him. It's sort of like the quarterback. Everyone looks at the quarterback. Did he make the pass? Did he not make the pass? But there's 10 other guys out there, right? There's 10 of the things, 10 of the layers that go into that in regards to any play in football, particularly in field goal. But yeah, not the kicks he wanted to make, and didn't go through the uprights. I've seen Drew make plenty of kicks that have gone through the uprights. Right, that's another thing we saw. We saw a career-long field goal from Drew in week 1. We see it every day here in practice, right? We see him every day. Look at this kick; it's unbelievable. And also over the course of his career, he's gone out and he's made big kicks for this football team. Just didn't get it done in the most recent game. But that to me is a one-off. That's not Drew Stevens. That's not the guy I know. The guy that I've watched work and grow over the last 4 years. So, to me, I attribute it didn't get it done, didn't go in the way he wanted to, and continue to work on it and continue to improve.
Caden Weegan told me a couple months ago is that when you were recruiting him from over at Iowa Western, that he said that you told him that he reminded you of Tim Dwight. I was curious what maybe went into that comparison, what you saw in him that made that comparison, just because that's obviously a name that holds a special place in Hawkeye and Iowa high school sports lore.
I think initially, the stature, right, and how he runs, right? Tim's not the tallest guy. Tim's blazing fast. Caden, again, not the tallest guy, but super fast. Caden has really good balance, right? Really good lower body strength. It's very unique to have a guy that can do kick returns and punt returns, and still, he has a speed of a wide receiver and probably the build of a running back. I think it's a very unique build that he has physically. Now there's the fearlessness part. Okay, because Tim was fearless. When you watch him, you go look, and I had to pull up these YouTube clips, because believe it or not, they didn't have the video digitized from back then. So we're looking at YouTube clips late at night during training camp one year, and watching Tim out here, this end zone. It was Arizona. I think I was a true freshman. I was a true freshman. Tim came down as a gunner and just tattooed this guy. Right, as a punt gunner, I was like, watch this. This could be you, going through all the things, going through all of his returns. Caden Weegan's pretty dang good, and I think Tim would tell you the same thing.
He's making the legacy proud for sure, and boy, this punt return against UMass is still just wild. You see kind of the tail of the tape there on the graphic on YouTube. 2 return touchdowns, this one, and then the kickoff to open the game against Rutgers. You've blocked a field goal also out in Piscataway, courtesy of Ethan Herkett, but you've had those 2 blocked punts from Reese. You've had 4 missed kicks now, 3 field goals, and an extra point. So it's been a mixed bag for special teams, a unit that 2 years ago was as reliable as any you could ask for. But Drew, more struggles. Reese trying to find consistency. Caden seems to be doing fantastic outside of the Iowa State game where he had some hiccups. How do we feel about LeVar Woods' room 5 games in?
I hope the Drews is just a blip on the radar because he is reaching record-breaking status. I believe he's 4 away from tying Nate Kading for the most field goals in Hawkeye history. So you'd love to see him do that with emphatic fashion, to go out with a bang, not with a whimper, if you will. So the missed kicks have been there. LeVar Woods keeps harping on it that, like, it is a unit that struggles, not just one person. You know, yeah, there's been maybe some holding, maybe some snapping, maybe some blocking issues. I don't know. But you do want to see Drew Stevens get that cleaned up before the end of the season. Restate, I mean, I really can't explain that. I've never known with punt blocks, like, surely that's not on the punter more often than not, right? Or is it a guy who's like needing to get the ball off faster, or is it just like the blocking situation is not great up front?
Each of them have been on the left side where a guy's just gotten through. The first one was Jaden Montgomery. It looked like the guy just got around him. You know, you're keeping your eyes down here and you're just kind of spreading out and trying to impede progress rather than outright stop. At least it looks like that on that left side. And then Hayden Large was on the last one. And yeah, just a case of you're looking down, you're trying to stop the guy, and if he gets around you and he's got a clear shot, he gets a hand on it. So yeah, there's stuff to clean up there. I listen, a punt protector and those guys, that's a big responsibility, and you got a lot of things to keep in mind.
It could be too, like if you think like they fake pressure from right side and then like at the last moment, so then your last blocker goes this way, but it's coming this way.
And you're on the line.
LeVar
you can't really
also
move around a lot.
Yeah, LeVar also said that, I believe he said that the one against Indiana, the snap made the punter move to the left, which that needs to be cleaned up too, because you don't want that, especially if he snaps it into a block. I mean, fortunately for Iowa, it still went like 30 yards. So, I mean, what are you going to do? But
it's a great blocked punt. Yeah. I was like, was that blocked? Like, that's going far for
that's a touchdown.
Ball.
It might, that changes the game. But I agree with you, Owen. Like, I'm holding out hope this is just a blip on the radar for Drew Stevens, because like it's 3 in 3 games. Yeah. Obviously it would have been a different situation in the last 2 minutes if Drew hits that kick. Still, Indiana could score a touchdown. We don't know. It's not like it's a guaranteed win unless you get the first down and then kick the field goal. But we've seen some struggles previously too. A couple years ago when you missed the one against Nebraska. Last year was pretty solid. But hopefully, this isn't. The last thing I want it to happen is if he gets inside his own head.
And that's. I was just going to say, that's kind of what happened 2 years ago, was that he started missing a few kicks, and then by the Nebraska game, it seems like he just kind of fell apart, and everything was going wrong for him against Nebraska, and that's why he got replaced by Marshall Meter, which led to an all-time great Iowa moment, nevertheless. But still, after last year, you were hoping for a guy who was getting to be maybe a little bit closer to perfection for his final year as a Hawkeye.
Yeah, let's just hope. So his percentage right now is 75%, 9 out of 12, missed 3, and let's just hope that gets up to closer to the high 80s. That'd be good. Yeah. But, that last field goal, the snap and the hold, the laces weren't all the way turned around, and it did go the way the laces were going. If you want to buy into that stuff. Yeah. But like LeVar said, it's a whole unit thing.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that goes into the loss of Luke Elkin. He was a guy who was as reliable as a long snapper as you could want for, 3-4 years. And now bringing in a couple different guys who are snapping the ball this season. So maybe that's going to be a part of it that gets cleaned up.
Yeah, everyone's getting more comfortable. As far as it's whether or not it's in his head, we've talked to Drew quite a bit. He's an immensely introspective young man. The type of human he is, I think, has probably evolved a heck of a lot from 23 to 25 years, not age for him. I don't think he's 25. But LeVar mentioned that as well, just how much he's grown as a human being during his time in Iowa City. So you'd think, it stinks to have a miss like that, and then you sit around for the bye for a couple weeks. You try not to let it stew. I do think he's probably better equipped to overcome and flush, because in that time, you get the chance to reflect on a kick that you hit to beat Nebraska, and the big ones you've hit, what do you have, 5 or 6 in College Park against Maryland. You flushed the bad. Now you've hit your hiccup. You're better conditioned mentally to handle the dip on the road, rather than maybe a couple years ago you really crash and let it weigh you down. Look back at your resume, man. You've got a heck of a road that you've carved out here the last couple of years. We were talking about Groza stuff and maybe Big Ten kicker of the year, and you're still that guy. You had one bad miss, and again, there's a litany of variables that go into it. So you hope Drew Stevens can certainly bounce back. And then Caden Weegan, talk about bouncing back. We go, boy, that Ames game, just tough to see him make some uncharacteristic mistakes, he has flushed those and then some, and has really come into his own, and as versatile a player as you're going to find in college football.
He's been amazing.
Yeah.
And the worst, I guess the only negative is that teams don't try to kick him as not much. I don't think he had a single return. He had a punt return.
Nice one.
Yeah, it was a nice punt return, too. He had a lot of speed to get to the outside. And I just hope that he can get some more opportunities, because I would like to see that number go up of touchdowns, obviously. And he does 20 yards is huge on a field position, right?
Right.
And that's what he did that one drive in. He's been awesome, and I like how they're getting him the ball more on offense. We've been calling that, I guess, me specifically, for a couple of years now, and it's just he can do it.
Seems like every time he gets the ball on offense, he does something. He's not a guy that's going to be in there every down, but when he gets the ball, something is going to happen, and that's why we're going to get into this, I know, in our next episode, talking about MVPs, but this is why I think he's the most valuable player on this year's Hawkeye team, just because of not just his scoring, but his ability to set them up in good position more often than not. Had a little hiccup at Iowa State. Not every return has been 100% fantastic, but I think that what he's done has created such immense value. Very similar to what Tory Taylor did a couple years ago, where it's like, he's not scoring points for the Hawkeyes, but just what he does on special teams to impact the field position is similar to Caden Weegan, and that's why I think he's been so much value to this team.
I was explaining to a younger member of the media on Saturday, like, Tory Taylor punted for 500 yards against Wisconsin 2 years ago. You're too young. That was 24 months ago. You couldn't remember that. But, they were new to the beat. And I'm just like, yeah, like, that's why people love punters here, is because they, especially Tory, has come a long, long way. And a special word for those that follow the Orange Bowl team. Ryan Donahue's in the middle of a battle. Pat Anger just posted a GoFundMe for him, if you remember Ryan, punting for that Orange Bowl team. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers, and maybe check out what Pat posted on X earlier today. We'll turn to our picks now. Obviously, it's a bye week for Iowa, but there are some intriguing games in the Big Ten. People were a little low on the college football slate this week just because it was so phenomenal last week. Mike just raised his hand for our listeners there, but there's some interesting games here, particularly for teams that Iowa's got coming up on the schedule here. So let's look at what we've got. We'll start with Wisconsin going to Ann Arbor ahead of the Iowa game. Wisconsin goes into Michigan in the Big House, a 16.5-point underdog against the Wolverines. Can they keep it closer than that against the Maize and Blue, who seem to be figuring some things out for themselves?
Yeah, I really don't think so. I think that Wisconsin, at this point, they know that their season is lost. They know they stink. They know they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. And I feel like, honestly, they're pushing all their chips into the Iowa game. I think that they might be looking ahead because they're like, they don't want to get embarrassed as much as they did last year against Iowa. They don't want a 4-game losing streak to the Hawkeyes now. So I think they might be thinking ahead, kind of forgetting about the Michigan game. I think that Michigan has a chance to win by 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I know the Michigan offense is, parallels to Iowa because their offense hasn't been great of late, but they got a true freshman, especially last year. I mean, they had one of the worst passing offenses in the country. Their freshman has been playing better, though, that quarterback, Bryce Underwood. But, their defense is still pretty salty. And I was looking at the Wisconsin schedule, and it's like, are they going to be favored in any game this season? They might go 2-10.
Yeah.
I'm taking... Yeah, it's a big spread, but I think I'm going to take Michigan. I just don't know if Wisconsin's going to score many points.
Yeah, I don't know if Wisconsin's overlooking them as much as Michigan's just that much better than them. I think you got to have your head on straight when you go to Ann Arbor and just be ready for that environment. They've figured out what they have in Bryce, and he's been really impressive since that Oklahoma game. I mean, going on the road, and that's congratulations. Here's your first road game. He had barely turned 18 years old. He's been 18 for like 6 weeks. He's really coming to his own. Justice Haynes is crazy good. He might be the best running back in the country. Him and the kid from USC are really special. So I think Michigan will cover, not for any lack of effort or focus for Wisconsin. I just think Michigan's figured out who they are, and they're doubling down on being a ground and pound team that can maybe pass a little bit when Bryce is getting comfortable. Maybe he's got an opportunity to do that there, and that defense certainly is salty. Penn State, coming off the loss in overtime at home against Oregon, goes on the road and goes up against a UCLA team that's just trying to figure stuff out there. They are a 25.5-point favorite in L.A. Can Penn State, Drew Aller, and this offense bounce back and run over the Bruins?
This feels like maybe one of my more out there picks yet, but I think that Penn State maybe isn't going to go as crazy in this game as it's possible. UCLA's obviously a change in leadership right now. I think Rick Neuheisel's calling the plays for that team now, I believe.
Rick's kid.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that the time zone change for Penn State obviously is a big thing. That's 3 time zones away from your normal game time. I think that obviously Penn State's going to win this game, but I think that UCLA could keep it closer than 25.5 points.
Yeah, I wanted to do that pick just because it's such a big spread. It looks like it's like an FCS or, a group of 5 team. The turmoil going on at UCLA, like you mentioned, they just fired their offensive coordinator this week, fired their head coach a couple weeks ago. I think UCLA, too, coming off a loss, is going to want
Penn State.
some blood. Yeah, Penn State. Sorry. They did struggle at USC last week with that long flight to LA.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I'm going to have the Lions cover.
2 wins in Penn. I'll take the same. I don't think we really need to evaluate or add any more to that. I will say, always the interesting parallels. So Jerry Neuheisel taking over the OC duties for UCLA after Tino Sanzeri was they mutually agreed to part ways. Tino was the quarterback for Pitt in 2011 when Iowa had their major comeback. Man who was the GA for the Panthers that
always
year.
An Iowa tie, huh?
Man who was GA for the Panthers that year, Dan Lanning, who will be back in Iowa City for the first time when Oregon comes to town here in a little bit. Washington at Maryland. This is going to be a fun one. Ohio State impressive in Seattle last week, 23-6 win against the Huskies, who weren't ranked, weren't getting votes in the AP poll, but were as salty of a 4-0 team as you could ask for. They are a 6.5-point favorite. Going to College Park against the Terps team that talk about finding your quarterback. Malik Washington's been outstanding. Can Maryland hold serve and keep this within a touchdown against a Washington team that's, again, better than their lack of ranking in Maryland? You could maybe argue the same.
I'm a little bit split on these two teams just because of this lack of much of an indicator in the schedule so far. Hard to say what either team really can do, but I guess I'm just going to go with the time zone factor again. With 3 time zones away, Washington going to the East Coast, I guess I'll take Maryland.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger factor than I guess it's talked about nationally, but
it seems like it's
coast
affecting
to coast.
teams. Like,
yeah, Washington was
something.
That's why I took Penn State to cover against Oregon.
I don't like
Oregon's Oregon though.
Yeah, good point. I don't like betting these in real life, but like Seattle, the DC, like remember Washington went out to Rutgers and lost that game. They were 0-5 in the road in Big Ten, and they had to come past the Rockies like 4 times I think. So I'll take the points. Wouldn't surprise me if Washington won, though.
Yeah,
like a point or 2.
I just always go back to Damon Williams, Denzel Boston, Noah Coleman, or Jonah Coleman. I'm going to take Washington to win by a touchdown. Thanks for the half point. We'll take it, and it'll be a 7-point game. But again, that's going to be a fun one. I think that could be a shootout. That could be a 42-35 type thing, and that could be a lot of fun. This is, for me, a wild spread and a really intriguing game. Michigan State, an 11.5-point underdog, going to Lincoln to take on Nebraska. These are Iowa's final 2 opponents of the regular season. They got Michigan State on Senior Day, and then you turn around 6 days later and head to Lincoln themselves to play the Cornhuskers. Can Michigan State keep this within 1.5 scores and cover in Nebraska, or can the Cornhuskers really open up against Jonathan Smith and company?
I apologize. These screens are a little far. That's an 11.5-point spread? Okay, for Nebraska?
Yeah, they have to cover.
It's in your iNews.
Yeah.
iNews, for those watching at home, is a system where we stack our newscasts and like all the scripts. And
this does say 10.5 or is that what it says on screen too? It says 10.5 in iNews.
No, 11. I checked this morning.
Things have moved. Things have moved.
Oh, it's on the move, baby. I don't think Michigan State is as good as a 3-1 record. They've played a pretty weak non-conference schedule. They beat Boston College by 2, still gave up 40 points, gave up 24 to FCS Youngstown State. I think I like Nebraska to win by a couple scores.
I am going to go the opposite direction just because I think Michigan State, they covered against USC in LA at like midnight their time. I don't think Nebraska is very strong in the trenches, I think Michigan State's going to be able to score. I think Nebraska still is going to probably outscore them, but are they going to outscore them by 2 touchdowns? Or I guess 12 points. That's about, whatever. I don't think so. So let me take the Sparty.
Touchdown field goal into safety. They got it.
Yeah, I'm going to take Sparty to cover too. I think Nebraska has struggled, particularly on the defensive line. I think Aiden Childs, we saw it against Iowa last year. You let him have a little time to dance around, and he can hurt you. So I think, Nebraska probably still the favorite and pulls out the win, but I'll take Sparty to cover. Again, I think that's going to be a really, really fun game. I believe that's a 6:30 game on NBC that night. That's a fun one. That'll be a fun one. Tune into that. All right, we'll try and improve those records, and by we, I mean me. I got some work to do. I'm the one that's under 500, but we'll again be back on Friday with our preseason prediction recap, looking back on who the MVPs are so far this season and what we had as bold predictions and how we feel about that. Again, we are on the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. We've got the Eye on the Hawks playlist if you want to follow those for all of our content, not just the podcast, but also all the extended interviews from Tuesday availability and post-game reactions as well. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, we are there for your podcasts needs and Hawkeye coverage. And there's a look at iNews there. You got a quick look there. It's like XL, just supercharged. It's
skeleton-like. Yeah.
Lots of colors.
It's a lot. Yeah, the colors keep us happy, I guess. All right, so we will see you again on Friday. Thanks for tuning in on a Wednesday here on Eye on the Hawks. For Director Erica and Mike and Owen, I'm Mitch. We'll be recapping everything from those preseason predictions as we continue the bye-week coverage.
At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. We encourage the volunteer spirit by providing DePaco employees with the tools and resources to help grow our communities and support the causes that matter to us. We believe that giving back not only strengthens the places we call home, but also enhances our overall well-being. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.